Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. The American dream now costs $5 million. Learn just what that will mean for you. The beauty of 50-year mortgages. Then, after 11 years, I share the most depressing thing I've ever said on the show. Today on Get Rich Education. You know, most people think they're playing it safe with their liquid money, but they're actually losing. Savings accounts and bonds don't keep up when true inflation eats 6 or 7% of your wealth every single year. I invest my liquidity with FFI, Freedom Family Investments, in their flagship program. Why? Fixed 10 to 12% returns have been predictable and paid quarterly. There's real-world security backed by needs-based real estate like affordable housing, senior living, and healthcare. Ask about the Freedom Flagship Program when you speak to a Freedom Coach there. And that's just one part of their family of products. They've got workshops, webinars, and seminars designed to educate you before you invest. Start with as little as $25K and finally get your money working as hard as you do. Get started at freedomfamilyinvestments.com/GRE. Or send a text now. It's 1-937-795-8989. Yep, text their Freedom Coach directly. Again, 1-937-795-8989.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE. From Norwich, Connecticut to Norwich, North Dakota, and across 188 nations worldwide, you're listening to Get Rich Education. I'm Keith Weinhold. You probably know me by now, but if you're new, I am an active member of the Forbes Real Estate Council. You can see my work in the USA Today, and of Paramount Import. I am an active real estate investor. We're talking about America's top shaved mammal on a microphone here. But suffice it to say, this mammal has at least shaved. Just how can this slack-jawed mammal persist in this environment? Well, I don't know, but I've been doing it here for more than 11 years now. More on that later. This is episode 575, and each episode's release is a bigger deal than releasing the Epstein files. Today is no exception. Although today's show release will get fewer people in trouble than the release of the Epstein files. Speaking of people in trouble, it is the middle class. It's the average American and the average Canadian too, because it now costs $5 million to fuel the American dream, but yet at the same time, hordes of people are now going the other direction, and they're getting poorer. The affordable housing crisis that we've talked about here seems to probably still have not reached its crescendo, or perhaps if you know music, it's the opposite, a diminuendo. Things are getting to a low point. How bad is it getting? Well, priced out of a permanent home, more and more Americans are living full-time on RVs, not like nice fancy RVs either, beaters. 486,000 Americans are now estimated to live in RVs because they are out of options. And the more soul-crushing part of this is that number has more than doubled just since 2021. I've got 2 minutes of astonishing audio footage of this to share with you shortly about the RV living. Homelessness is up 18% since last year. That figure is sourced by HUD. HUD has the best stat set on homelessness, and that's a problem that's increasingly visible in your own city, more likely than not. And, you know, I have personally gotten into more than just surface-level chats casually with food servers and baristas. You know, just these quick chats with them. And you know what? They divulged to me that they're living in their car. Yeah, I'm not probing and asking about that sort of thing, but they just share that with me. Yeah, food servers And baristas that I just met, they will often tell me that they're living in their car within 5 minutes of chatting with them. And when they do that, by the way, it also makes me wonder if they're trying to get me to feel bad for them and they're freely telling me that just to get a tip from me. Well, today, mobile homes are even being coveted. I mean, living in a trailer park, that is affordable housing. We covered that on last week's show. Now, the real estate company Redfin and Ipsos, they conducted a survey of more than 4,000 U.S. homeowners and renters, and they asked respondents about the struggle to afford housing. And it was astounding to learn that to string together a life where they have stable housing, how people are doing all these things. They're delaying having children. They're getting rid of their pets. And some are going through the discomfort of living with an ex-spouse just to have affordable housing. As far as what is now almost 500,000 Americans living full-time on RVs and growing since they can't afford a home, NBC covered this, and it is sad. Let's listen into just how squalid the living conditions are, quickly profiling two people as this reporter goes on their tiny RVs. I mean, as you listen to this, okay, keep reminding yourself, keep telling yourself, this is America today. And as you'll see, this isn't even in a high-cost part of the nation that we're about to profile here. Again, tell yourself, this is America today. Well, this NBC field reporter gets shown the insides of two different RV units by two separate owners, each living by themselves. First a man and then a woman. This is about 2 minutes in length.
For Gus Francis, this is home. A 20-year-old camper he bought for $5,000, parked in an RV lot in Graysville, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga.
I got all my rosaries for protection everywhere. Books.
Now retired, he worked for decades as a commercial diver and hoped to live closer to his widowed mother. But when he sought a more conventional home,
I just can't see how people with a normal job making $15 an hour can afford an apartment without multiple roommates. I ate a lot of soup.
Yeah, soup is great.
Meals are made in the microwave, the stove unused for fear of a gas leak. Right next door is Debbie Williams. She sold her house in Kentucky to be closer to her grandchildren, but housing prices near Chattanooga increased by almost 50% since 2020.
Apartments are like about $1,200 a month, but then you got your utilities to pay. This is permanent, plus it include it's like $550 a month, includes electric, water.
So you're saving over
and
50%.
Trash too, everything. It includes everything.
Debbie works nights, helping adults with disabilities, and says she likes her setup, even if the exercise bike doesn't fit inside.
Bathroom,
From the hallway.
yeah.
Okay.
I like my shower. It's really nice. And then my bedroom.
Debbie and Gus now among the nearly 500,000 people in the U.S. living in RVs full-time.
I sometimes thought, man, if I could have saved more money in the past, but what it was is I don't blame myself either because I raised 4 kids with no child support.
Despite the tight quarters, plenty of room to build a community that matters. Ellison Barber, NBC News, Graysville, Tennessee.
Gosh, cramped and modest conditions there. Again, tell yourself, this is America today. And see, here's the thing. From all outward signs, these two people profiled, they're not substance abusers. They're not criminals that can't get a job. These are American workers that have been productive people throughout their lives. The first guy, Gus, said he worked for decades as a commercial diver. And that part of Tennessee, it's not a place in the nation where the cost of living is exorbitant either. The crux of the problem here is not just the wave of inflation that started in 2021. The essence of it is the fact that inflation has outpaced wage growth. Will you ever get to having a $5 million net worth? Because that's what it takes to live the American dream today. Now, a while back, I told you how if you amass $5 million, really, that's the number, that's the threshold where you could probably stop working and just invest such that you could live off it forever. But inflation changes that and it keeps upping that number. Well, since then, Investopedia recently came up with this $5 million price tag. That's just for living the American dream in today's dollars. Let's look at what that really means, and then we'll add up the spending categories. This is really interesting. All right, the definition of the American dream, what that means is owning a home, raising 2 kids, retiring comfortably, and maybe throwing in an annual vacation or 2. So a nice life for sure, but nothing extravagant. And okay, yes, there is this other angle of like money cannot buy the best things in life. And that's true. There's a lot to be said for that. But this is not a relationships and a dating show. Okay. So that's why I'm covering the financial angle here. And later today, I'll tell you how much the typical American makes throughout their lifetime, which is much less than $5 million. But to get to that exact $5 million total, which is the least that you now need in net worth, the estimated lifetime costs of 8 milestones most often associated with the dream were added up by Investopedia. And now, of course, everyone's dream is different and housing costs differ nationally, but I mean, this is pretty reasonable. Here they are. This is how much it takes for each of them today, and I'm doing some rounding. Retirement, over $1.6 million. That's what it takes now. Healthcare, $414K. This is all spent over the course of your lifetime. A wedding, $38K. And I hope that is wedding singular, not weddings plural. Owning a home, $957K. Raising 2 children and paying for college, that costs $876K. And then owning a new car, that is another $900K. Yeah, that sounds like a lot, but that will include costs of financing and insurance and depreciation on cars throughout your life. And then a yearly vacation is $180K throughout your life, and pets $39K. All right, there it is. That is the $5 million total for the American dream. And again, that is only in today's dollars. Inflation will, of course, make all of these future costs run up. And all right, housing is really the biggest part of the dream. I mean, second to retirement anyway. All right, again, the lifetime cost of housing, like I said, is $957K. Just a year ago, it was $930K. Okay, well, the national median list price of a single-family home is about $430K. I guess that makes sense. Most people live in multiple homes throughout their lives. Well, the price per square foot is up 50% just since 2019. That is what is pricing people out. That is what is making people become your renter instead of a homeowner. Well, this $5 million required for the dream, that is why more people are homeless or more people are living in RVs. This means that the demand for the product that you're providing to the marketplace, affordable housing, that demand is considerable and that demand is durable. And the median lifetime earnings for one American with a bachelor's degree is only $2.8 million. All right, so that's just over half as much as it takes to live the dream. But here's what's appalling. Are you ready? Here we go. This could be the most depressing and concerning stat you've heard on this show, maybe one of the most depressing and concerning in your entire life when you really think this through. All right. Now, what do you think of as sort of a model for someone that is stable? How about both married and a homeowner? I mean, yeah, they're 2 big markers. Married and homeownership. That is foundational stuff. When your kids grow up to be adults, if they become married and a homeowner, I mean, come on, who would be disappointed with that? That would probably make you feel proud and fulfilled. I mean, the future of the nation, that is children and stable household formation material right there. Well, by age 30, how many people do you think are married and a homeowner today? And how's that changed over time? What do you think? This is the percent of 30-year-olds who are both married and homeowners in the U.S. All right, back in 1950, it was 52%. Today, it is just a quarter of that. Only 13% of American 30-year-olds are married homeowners today. Gosh, is that appalling or what? I mean, it doesn't exactly give you hope for the future. Since owning a home is a key pillar of the American dream, then, the best thing that our local, state, and federal lawmakers can do is to make it easier to build new housing. That is one of the most depressing stats I gave in 11 years of doing the show. Probably the most depressing. Another thing we can do is not protest or block new development. No NIMBYism. Now, earlier this year, the White House announced that they are considering declaring a national housing emergency. In fact, you saw me put a link to that in the section of our newsletter that we call The Five. Though we haven't seen a national housing emergency declared yet, if we do at all, the motivation behind it is largely to make housing affordable. One piece that's been floated out there is the introduction of a 50-year mortgage. So that way, mortgage payments are spread out and made lower than they are with the most popular mortgage in America today by far, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Now, I wouldn't say that a 50-year mortgage is imminent and is about to happen. We can't say that, but it could be creeping closer. I mean, a 40-year mortgage, that is already more of a thing. You've got 40-year HUD loans and 40-year DSCR loans, both already here for residential property. We do know that buyers buy property more so based on a payment than they do the overall price of the property. Now look, I'll tell you, if I could somehow magically snap my fingers and convert all of my 30-year mortgage loans over to 50-year loans, oh, I sure would. It would lower my payment and increase my cash flow. Yes, my debt would hang around longer, and, well, we're right back to, you guessed it, financially free beats debt-free. Let's run that comparison. On a $300K loan at 6% interest, a 30-year mortgage payment that is $1,800 a month, but on a 50-year loan, that would be just $1,580. Yeah, $1,800 versus $1,580. Well, that is going to boost your cash flow by $220 a month on that property just by going from a 30-year to a 50-year at the same interest rate. So maybe not as much of a difference as you thought, but probably worth doing. At least in the mortgage world, debt-free, I mean, that concept of debt-free, that makes most people, in exchange for that debt-free condition, grind and toil and work overtime and lose family time and eat dirt for decades because inflation and all these other forces work against them. And yes, this is just with mortgage debt that I'm talking about here. Of course, some debt is bad, like unsecured high interest rate credit cards or doing a buy now, pay later plan on a pizza that you split into 4 payments. That's ridiculous. And those are the type of debts you've also got to pay yourself. That's not what we're talking about here. In fact, it gets even worse for the mortgage debt-free person. That extra $220 you're paying by having a 30-year loan instead of a 50-year loan, that would mean you're accumulating more dollars in the home, which are illiquid. And again, 50-year loans don't exist yet, but understanding this concept and this trade-off helps you be a better investor. Look, a debt-free person can still be broke in the short term if they have a meager income, and they can be broke in the long term if they are not leveraging assets in debt. Being debt-free, that is like bragging that you quit the gym so that you'll never pull a muscle again. I mean, you're safe for now, but you're going to be weaker in the long run. Now, let's use a different example. Let's just run a different set of numbers. Let's say you've got a $400K mortgage at 3.5% interest. So your monthly payment is $1,796 on a 30-year fixed. Some people think, oh, if I just throw an extra $1,000 a month at this, I'm going to be debt-free years sooner. And the truth is, yes, you will save $90K in interest and you are going to own the house outright earlier. But what's the opportunity cost? If that same $1K a month went into investments earning even 7% annually, after 15 years it grows to about $311K. Well, that is more than 3 times the interest savings, which again was only $90K. So for some, paying off the mortgage early feels like some sort of emotional win, but it is rarely the best financial win. I mean, that is like benching LeBron to save money on Gatorade. I mean, that is a bunch of nonsense. So debt-free is the floor. Financially free is the ceiling. I mean, do you know about those popular call-in shows where people are advised to lower their standards, diminish their quality of life, not go on vacations in order to get debt-free? Oh dear. I mean, those shows have got to be screening their callers closely to ensure that no one savvy actually gets on the air. Somebody, hey, how about you? Why don't you get on the air? Get on that show, ask them some tough questions about getting mortgage debt free. You tell them, tell them that your ROI on all that equity is 0 because home values change regardless of equity positions. Tell them that a home is never paid off because you'll still owe property tax and maintenance and repairs and utilities and maybe insurance and an HOA. Tell them you lost the gift of inflation eating your debt while you sleep. Tell them mortgage interest is often tax deductible. Tell them that their leverage is gone. And all these facts, every one of those I just stated, they're now figuratively not just talking, they're yelling, they're screaming now, because markets of all types are at all-time highs. So instead, if you had used those funds to pay off a property, they would have really missed out on earning big returns for years elsewhere, a steep opportunity cost. Suffice it to say, I would love to see the widespread adoption of 50-year mortgages, and I would use them. The other thing that would happen is that it would make home prices rise further because more people can afford the lower payments to bid up the price. So actually, here's something that I'm wondering about with you. Did you ever have a paid off property and then realize all of this and then go and get new financing on it again? Have you ever done that? If you have, that would be really interesting. Let us know if you've had a property in a paid off position, realized the vulnerability and the opportunity cost of having all that illiquid equity, and then you went and put debt back on it. Let us know at getricheducation.com/contact. That's getricheducation.com/contact. Like Ridge Lending Group knows this when I have Chaley Ridge here. Like she and I discussed, you even get the cash chunk out tax-free. And here's what else is interesting about this. Just say, you know how out in the world of real estate agents, where people are buying and selling property, well, whenever a buyer's agent knows that that listed property is owned by a seller that still has a mortgage on it, well, the assumption is that the seller, well, they might be a little more motivated to sell since they have to make mortgage payments on that property that they might not even be occupying anymore. Well, that is backwards. In most cases, you should be more motivated to want to sell a property if it's paid off because you've got all that dead equity in it that needs to be released through that sale. So really, a listing agent should be thinking, this seller has got to sell this property with urgency, if for no other reason because he or she has lots of equity in that property. That's how to think about it. The world has it 100% backwards. That mindset is 180 degrees from the truth. Coming up next, did you know that this week, yes, right here in mid-October every year is historically the best week of the year to buy a home? Also, what's it like behind the scenes here on the microphone? I've got that and more straight ahead. I'm Keith Weinhold. You're listening to Get Rich Education. If you're scrolling for quality real estate and finance info today, yeah, it can be a mess. You hit paywalls, pop-ups, push alerts, cookie banners. It's like the internet is playing defense against you. Not so fun. That's why it matters to get clean, free content that actually adds no hype value to your life. This is the golden age of quality email newsletters, and I write every word of ours myself. It's got a dash of humor, it's direct, and it gets to the point, because even the word abbreviation is too long. My letter takes less than 3 minutes to read, and it leaves you feeling sharp and in the know about real estate investing. This is paradigm-shifting material. And when you start the letter, you'll also get my 1-hour fast real estate video course, completely free as well. It's called the Don't Quit Your Daydream letter. It wires your mind for wealth, and it couldn't be simpler to get. Visit greletter.com. While it's fresh in your head, take a moment to do it now at greletter.com. Visit greletter.com. The same place where I get my own mortgage loans is where you can get yours, Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided our listeners with more loans than anyone because they specialize in income properties. They help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. Start your pre-qual and even chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. While it's on your mind, start at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com.
Hi, this is Russell Gray, co-host of the Real Estate Guys radio show, and you're listening to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. There's a lot to look forward to in future months here on the show. New content from me, new prominent guests, the return of some favorite guests, a live event to tell you about, and our annual home price forecast show, where I'll also reveal if last year's GRE home price prediction for this year came true or not. I have got to say, I have nailed it to the exact percent a few years in a row now. But if you remember, before this year began, I forecast 5% national home price appreciation for this year. We will see how that turns out, but home prices are only up 1 or 2% year over year so far. Yes, not only do I make the forecast, I actually follow up with the previous years to check the accuracy. Don't you wish everyone did that? Well, it is October, and it's the month where you got to be ready to defend your love of candy corn. And the same Americans complaining about inflation also bought a 40-foot skeleton for the front yard. Well, the best time to buy a home historically is this week. This year it happens to fall on October 12th to 18th, as it turns out. Why would that be? It sounds kind of random, doesn't it? Well, the NAR recently reported on this, and this is what they give a 3-word moniker aptly named the best week. That's what they call it, the best week. Now, this applies more to primary residences and to 1 to 4 unit investment property, but it's a little applicable to apartment buildings too. And this really helps you understand real estate buying, selling, and consumer nature. Historically, this week offers the most favorable balance of market conditions for buyers. This is when inventory tends to be elevated, prices typically dip below their seasonal peak, the buyer competition slows, and just the overall pace of the market becomes more manageable. Again, quote unquote, the best week. This seasonal shift every year, it's influenced by school schedules and even weather patterns. Housing activity typically ramps up in the spring. It peaks in the summer because a lot of families try to move while children are out of school and the desire to settle before the new academic year. That's back when you've got the warmer weather and the longer daylight hours. And you've got these curb appeal enhancements from lush summer foliage. That also makes spring and summer an ideal time for showings and inspections. That adds further momentum to the summer surge. These sort of things actually matter. But then the calendar shifts into fall, and demand naturally tapers off every year. You got families with school-aged children that exit the market, and then the remaining inventory begins to linger longer, and prices respond by dipping below peak levels, and homes tend to stay on the market longer. This happens every year. That makes for conditions that benefit late-season buyers. So listings tend to become more plentiful now. Each October, inventory levels, they tend to peak in early fall, and that's why it's about the best time to buy. You have less competition from other buyers. Home buyers shopping during, again, what is called the best week. You should expect less competition. Properties tend to attract the most viewership per listing early in the spring. And that's when buyers trickle into the market before the inventory picks up. And then the summer ushers in both more homes and more shoppers. And that means that buyers face quite a bit of competition in the summer. So the best week, that should offer more time for buyers to deliberate. And it can mean that sellers are more eager to compromise. And the numbers back that up historically, that this is the peak week for price reductions. So what can you do if you're potentially in the market? You might want to hit up greinvestmentcoach.com and have our coaches connect you with the right income property if that's the right move for you. And doing that is totally free. In fact, most listeners buy their first income property that way. In fact, if you had a good experience with a GRE investment coach, go ahead and tell a friend about it. Now, let's say that you had $1 back in the year 1995. So you've got a green dollar bill in your pocket 30 years ago. All right, well, what would happen to your dollar if you saved it versus putting it in stocks versus putting it in real estate? What do you think would happen in each of those three scenarios? Let's do it. Let's compare. Well, because of inflation, your dollar would be worth less than 50 cents if you had saved it. Yeah, it would have just 47 cents worth of purchasing power today. Instead, if you had put it in the S&P 500, your dollar would have seen some pretty significant growth. It would be worth $19 today. That's how stocks have performed over the past 30 years. But what about real estate? Well, there are so many ways to do it. Specifically, what if it were a rental property where real estate pays 5 ways, not just 1 or 2 like stocks? What kind of return can you expect from real estate? Well, when you add up all 5 ways, just using historic norms like classic rates of appreciation and a 4-to-1 leverage ratio, you get 38% as a total rate of return in year 1. And then that rate starts to fall because equity accumulates. And if you're not initiated on that, and it sounds like such a high-flying number, you can see my free video course that teaches you this at getricheducation.com/course. The most valuable free course you've ever taken in your life at getricheducation.com/course. Let's just get conservative and say so many things go wrong with your property that we're going to round that 38% all the way down to 20% per year. Yes, if you're new here, those sound like ridiculous rates of return. Anyone that's listened here for a while instead has been enjoying those rates of return if you bought right. I mean, you have so much more time and money in your life now. But at 20% ROI, your $1 from 1995 would be worth $237 today. Wow. And again, if it were saved under a mattress, it would be worth less than 50 cents. And in the S&P 500, just $19. This is a simplified way to demonstrate that compound leverage beats compound interest. I mean, real estate beats stocks by more than 12x right there. And see, that's the type of multiplier that you're probably going to need on your money. Since it already takes $5 million to live the American dream, you might very well need $25 million over the next few decades. Well, the 401k was created around 1980. the Roth IRA, created in 1998, and the GRE podcast was created on October 10th, 2014, and I trust that it's had a more positive impact on your life than any of those other vehicles. This means that I've released weekly episodes here for 11 years, never missing a week at all, 52 weeks a year, and we've never replayed an old show either. I am here for you. Integrity means doing what you say you're going to do. Vidren, our sound engineer, has been here with GRE for 11 years as well. That is the team, the duo that's been bringing you this show. And also, I didn't even tell my team here at GRE this yet, so I guess they'll learn now. The platform Business Rate just ranked us and awarded Get Rich Education the Best of the Year 2025 as a real estate school. Yes, we learned that this award is based on outstanding reviews from real customers, not nominations or votes, but the Best of the Year award comes from feedback through listeners just like you. Thank you for that, and thanks Business Rate. This show and real estate investing, they are the main things that I do, and I expect to be here for you well into the future. Now, it's sort of funny here, kind of a paradox. On the show, I talk about income production that's largely passive, yet producing this show at a high level for 11 years here on this side of the microphone is not passive. It is highly active. I got a reminder of this recently when a doctor buddy of mine said he considers starting a podcast on the side. Let me tell you what I shared with him. That is probably a terrible idea. To launch an ongoing podcast where you'll constantly carve out the time to produce high quality week after week, that is not a side gig. 99% of those scenarios fail. You've got to deliver great new content yourself. You've got to have a network of guests to complement you. You got to perform research and then cross-check your research because you've got to publish real, true information. You need a reliable editing solution. You need some organizational skills. You're going to need to hire some skilled and specialized assistants. In the real estate world, you've actually got to get out into the field and visit cities in person to corroborate your research on the ground and go to in-person conferences. I mean, there's a lot to do. But I did tell my doctor friend, the good news is that there are alternatives to starting a show. There are a couple of them, in fact. First, you can do a 10-episode mini-series on your area of expertise, host it on YouTube or Spotify, and then send that link to clients. Another thing you can do is get yourself booked as a guest on someone else's show, and you'll pay a podcast booking agent to do that. One strong guest episode, that could do more than 100 of your own episodes ever could. So that's my guidance in case you know any thought leaders that considered doing that. And what things look like from my view back behind the mic. It is not passive income, although my investing mostly is. And another thing, if I've hosted a past guest on the show and I get feedback from you or other listeners that they're not looking out for your best interest, or they don't want to do the property rehabs that they've promised, well, they are not coming back onto the show. Instead, we move on. I am here to do good and connect you only with providers that are doing good. Another show-related announcement, and if you listen here each week through the Get Rich Education mobile app, this is really important. If you're listening to me right now on our dedicated mobile app, the hosting platform terminates at the end of this month, so you're going to have to listen in a different way. Go to either the Apple Podcasts app or the Spotify app and search Get Rich Education to keep listening. That way you'll keep learning, stay motivated, and never miss an episode of my incomprehensibly slack-jawed vocals, profligate and unrepentant. Again, if you're listening to me right now on our dedicated GRE mobile app, the hosting platform terminates at the end of this month. You'll have to listen in a different way. Go to either the Apple Podcasts app or the Spotify app and search Get Rich Education inside those apps in order to keep listening after this month. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.